learned that I was going to be the opening speaker after the lunch hour, I started thinking how I could open this talk in a way that would wake everyone up and also maybe whet their appetites for the wine at the end, which leads me to the question, y'all ever think about middle school? I mean, we can drink about that later. I won't make you think about your middle school, but I'm gonna talk about mine, because twice in middle school, I had what I didn't know at the time would be life-changing events, but they were. So picture this, I'm 11 years old, I'm sitting on the floor at my dance studio. I've got ballet shoes on, the leotard, the tights, the whole thing, and I have a Star Wars book in my lap. Yes. All around me, yeah, you get it. All around me, there are girls my age in the same tight leotard button combo pack, roaming around, talking to each other. They're on their phones, they're on their iPods, because that was a thing back in the day, and they're all talking to each other, they clearly know each other, and then there's me sitting on the floor, and I'm looking around, and all I keep thinking is, man, we have nothing in common. I don't know if that's objectively true, but in dramatic middle schooler internal monologue fashion, I'm sitting there feeling a sense of deep resignation because I had tried the last 2 times this class happened to strike up a conversation with my peers. And it became pretty clear to me pretty fast we didn't have anything in common, aside from the fact that we were all there to learn ballet, tap, and jazz. They all knew each other. They knew each other's school friends. A lot of them went to the same school, and I was a shy, homeschooled kid who spoke a little bit older than she was, because my parents are both teachers and I read a lot of books, and there really wasn't any common ground. So I started bringing books like the Star Wars book. And I told myself, as I was sitting on the floor of that 3rd class session, reading my book, trying to get to the last chapter before class started, so I wasn't thinking about that the whole time I was trying to learn how to tendu and fouetter and all that stuff. I just kept telling myself, it's okay, it's fine. We're all just here to dance anyway. And then, someone appeared in my upward periphery, and I did that awkward little shuffle over to the side because I thought maybe it was in the way of her dance bag, but instead she plopped down right in front of me and pointed at my book and said, "Is that a Star Wars book?" And my head snapped up. Yeah. I expected to get teased, or maybe that was going to be the end of the conversation. I didn't know why she was asking, but instead she plopped down in front of me, she started grinning, and asked me, "So, have you seen all the movies?" And just like that, though I didn't know it at the time, I had made my first fandom friend. Moving on through middle school, I promise we won't hang out here forever because middle school, but when I was 13, I learned there was a word for that community that I had made with this dance class friend, who, by the way, is still in my life today, and I promise I'm not in middle school anymore. But when I was 13, I learned about the magical world of Tumblr.com, and if you don't know what that is, good for you. Tumblr, at the time, was a place where online fandom was booming. And I learned the term fandom when I learned of the existence of this website. And I learned that there is where I could find people who liked the same books and movies that I did. Prior to that, from age 11 on, I had been reading books and talking to my fandom friend from dance class, or trotting down to the kitchen, sitting down on the stool in front of my mother and subjecting her to many an impassioned rant about why I thought these 2 characters were terrible for each other, or why the plot twist in the 2nd book didn't make any sense. But now, the whole internet was my oyster. For my 13th birthday, I asked for 2 things. I asked for permission to get an email address so that I could make a Tumblr account. And it was on Tumblr that I realized that fandom was not relegated to real life. In fact, it was quite the opposite. On Tumblr, and in internet fandom at large, because of course I expanded my reach, I was a hungry 13-year-old who wanted to read more fan fiction and explore more stories, I could be not whoever I wanted in the sense of faking my identity, but I could be a very interesting person online. While in real life, I didn't really have any peers or age mates who shared my love of science fiction and my admittedly kind of weird fascination with post-apocalyptic storytelling. On the internet, I could find my people easy. And then I didn't have to subject my family to all of my impassioned rants about stories. They still got some of it though, don't worry, they weren't totally spared. But it was around that same age, 13, 14, as I was growing into myself online and as I was growing into myself as a human being in the real flesh and blood world, IRL, as we call it on the internet, I realized that there was an unspoken first rule of fandom, which is that we don't talk about fandom. Because online, It was super easy. I would just log into my Tumblr account and talk to my friends. We would message each other. Back then it was called an ask box. Now there's like actual IMing functions, but they didn't have that at the time. And it was so easy for me to just slide into my friends' ask boxes and talk to them. And then I would go to church or to dance class or talk to the neighbor kids. And it was like we were speaking two completely different languages. And when I would bring that up to my online friends, that's when I learned that the first rule of fandom is that we don't talk about fandom. Which was interesting to me because I grew up in the Midwest, whereas many people, even today, have told me sports is a lifestyle for a lot of people. And so I learned that sports fandom, it seemed to be okay in a way that entertainment fandom isn't. That was weird to me. It still kind of is, because on one hand, you've got entertainment fans, people like me, who like books and music and movies and anime and manga and TV shows, and we want to talk about them, and that is, even now in the cultural zeitgeist, sometimes ridiculed. I mean, think about all the sitcom spoofs making fun of Star Trek fans that go to conventions, or the pieces on the internet making fun of the screaming young teenage girl fans of One Direction or whatever the boy band of the moment is. And then you look at sports fans, and for context, I lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania when the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl. They were greasing light poles. I'm confident that some entertainment fans would love to do similar things, but as far as I know, I haven't done anything like that. If anyone knows an entertainment fan who's done that, please find me afterward and tell me, because I want to know. But the point remains, there have been studies done over the last 8 years that have backed up what myself and my fellow fandom geeks have known for years, in my case, over half my life, that entertainment fandom, statistically speaking, has a huge and profound impact on members of marginalized communities, people of color, queer folks, youth, people who are chronically ill, disabled, or homebound, or folks who are just in rural environments and don't really have anyone around them to, share other perspectives with about the stories that they like to engage with. Those have all had impact from the internet that have translated to the real world. Same thing like sports fandom. In fact, I distinctly remember a TEDx Chicago talk on this very topic. The power of sports fandom to alleviate or at least positively impact the loneliness epidemic, particularly in men. But when it comes to entertainment fandom, which is predominantly populated by members of marginalized communities, people who are historically, unfortunately, on the outskirts of society, there's not that same respect all the time. So, fast forward to high school, a much more forgiving time, and I was still a fandom girl, and I was chafing against the knowledge that the first rule of fandom is that you don't talk about fandom, and I was writing a lot. Not just because I was an aspiring journalism student, but also because I found my community, my sub-community of fandom, in fan fiction writers. And I'm breaking that cardinal rule of fandom right now, because if there's the first rule of fandom that you don't talk about fandom, the second rule of fandom is you don't cop to the fact that you still write fan fiction, but I do. I'm a marketing professional and I also write fan fiction. It's how I get the kinks out, it's fine. Don't judge me. I mean, you can, it's okay. But anyway, in high school and in college, I experienced what is covered very extensively in a 2003 book literally called Fans. It's a journey into the psychology of belonging that comes along with entertainment fandom, which found that there is a very marked disparity according to studies from 2017, 2022, and 2023, so this is a pattern, that sports fans are looked at as very passionate about their enjoyment, their hobbies, but entertainment fans displaying that same enjoyment are historically and societally critiqued, ridiculed, the subject of spoofs on sitcoms and Saturday Night Live and derogatory remarks all over the internet. But again, we return to the people climbing the light poles in Philadelphia. That kind of fanaticism was the sports fans, not the entertainment fans. We just line up around the block for concerts and book releases at Barnes & Noble. I don't think anyone's climbed a light pole there. I could be the first, I'm not gonna do that though. The point being, entertainment fandom is for everyone. Same as I believe sports fandom is for everyone, because both of them have more in common than they do apart. To me, it's not about what kind of fandom you're in, it's about the conversation we as a society are having around fandom and around how fandom can transcend the computer screen, the Tumblr blogs and the Discord servers, and the internet spaces folks hang out in on video games, and it can go into real life. Because yeah, I started off on the internet, I made my first fandom friend in real life. And then I would go on to make my second and my third and my fourth and my fifth and so on and so forth. And so many people in my life that have touched it from fandom. And then they came into my real life. I learned how to cuff shirts this particular way from a fandom friend in New Zealand when she came to visit a bunch of us in Chicago. Thanks, Jess. That's really helpful. I have short arms. I received a chronic illness diagnosis after 25 years of waiting because one of my fandom friends invited me to come and stay at their parents' house and see some doctors that might be able to help, and they did. That might not seem like a net positive, but trust me, after 25 years of just being a big old question mark, it's really helpful. I moved across the country. I've traveled the country. I'm going to a friend's wedding next year, and that friend is a friend I met online. And every single time I talk about one of these individuals that has impacted my life so deeply, and someone asks me how you met, I know that maybe I should feel embarrassed, but I only feel pride to say, oh, I met them online. Which, maybe talking to strangers on the internet isn't always a bad thing. Entertainment fandom, sports fandom, maybe you're in both, maybe you're in neither. It's all got its own different jargon. I'm never going to understand how football scoring works. Sorry. There's a whole world of baseball lingo that my friends in high school had that I did not understand, even though I asked them to explain it to me. And in the same vein, I don't think they ever quite got what I meant when I was dropping phrases like ship wars or talking about AO3. But we lived in harmony as best we could. And that is at the core of what I would like to see as we move into an age where everything is online first and in person second, or at least that's how it feels. Meet the friends online. Take in the perspectives. I know friends from as close as 15 minutes away from me to friends as far away from me as New Zealand and Germany and Australia. And we have all come together in person and virtually to enrich each other's lives and to bless each other and to take care of each other when one of us is sick or has lost a job, or to celebrate when someone got a new job or got engaged or moved to a different home away from those who are seeking to do them harm or damage. We celebrate the good and the bad, the same that I did with my in real life IRL friends at church or at dance class. Like I thought when I was 11, we're all just here to dance anyway, or collect action figures, or watch baseball or football, or climb light poles, I guess, or write fan fiction. You get the point. Fandom and friendship and loneliness, it's kind of like a big circle in my mind. When I enter a new fandom, because I'm still doing that, I make new friends, and I feel less isolated in this large ecosystem of story sharing that we're all in, and I also feel less alone just in my everyday life. Maybe you're sitting in this audience, and half of the things I've said make zero sense to you. That's fine. You might be more sane than me. Maybe that's a good thing. But if you're sitting here and you heard me start to talk about fandom or talk about Tumblr, or you know what AO3 means or what ship wars are referring to, congrats, we've bonded even though we've never spoken before. The internet has its own lingo, and so does fandom. And if you are like me and have spent so much time in fan spaces, watched perhaps as they've converted from the glory days of LiveJournal to Tumblr and what used to be Twitter and beyond, then you know that we are inexorably bound by the Tumblr.com shoelaces meme, or the infamous election/fandom meltdown back in 2020. But one thing to me remains the same, no matter how old I get, or what fandom I enter, or where I go, or what I do, or how many people are locked in a room with me while I talk to them about it. The language that we speak in fandom and the stories that we share in fandom, whether it's a sports victory or the ending of a manga, all of those things bring us together. That's what should be celebrated, instead of us all focusing on the differences that are highlighted just because somebody likes going to the Super Bowl and someone wants to go to New York Comic Con. Maybe you want to do both. Can I come if you want to? I'd be down, just saying. So in conclusion, because the internet is so deeply rooted in me at this point that it has changed my life in fundamental and incremental ways, starting from the not-so-glory days at all of middle school to where I stand today as a young professional in her mid-20s. And in homage to all of the in-jokes that the internet has built that have started in fandom and radiated out into the popular lexicon, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.